All right, in our previous exercise, we went over how to upgrade a more traditional V3 integration. This exercise is going to upgrade a more complex V3 integration. So a merchant is already integrated with Checkout.js V3. They have a complex integration that validates a form and makes an AJAX call to get a token before launching in context. They also have multiple buttons. So let's navigate to the conversion complex.html and take a look at their current integration. So if I go to our training app, conversion complex.html, let me find the V3 integration, which is right here. We have window PayPal checkout ready, and then the PayPal checkout setup call. Then you'll see we're setting environment to sandbox, container, PayPal button 1 and PayPal button 2. If we look and see what those are, here we got PayPal button 1 and PayPal button 2, which are both just div containers. So we're rendering two buttons into these two DOM IDs. Then we see a condition property of validate form. So every time we click on a button, this function runs, and if it returns true, then in context will launch, and if it returns false, then it will not. We're checking the length of the test input, and if it's greater than 3, then we are returning true. So as long as this input is greater than 3, we will launch the checkout flow. Then you'll also see the click property. We're preventing default. Then we're calling PayPal checkout initxo, which in V3 launched the pop-up before doing an AJAX call to prevent a pop-up blocker. And then we are doing the AJAX call. And then we are calling PayPal checkout start flow with the token that was returned. We'll also see we're including the checkout.js script. So now if I take a look at this in our actual application, if I go to complex, we'll see the buttons are rendered, and if I click any of the buttons, nothing actually happens. And that won't happen until I get this input greater than 3 characters. So now that it's 4, we'll see we launch it. We're making an AJAX call for the token and then rendering PayPal via the start flow. We will see that I am returned to the return URL, just like a basic classic integration. So how do we get multiple buttons in this conversion? Well, we did an exercise on this earlier. We can use the map function in order to execute a function on multiple indexes of an array. Where are we going to put the click function from V3? Well, we saw in our conversion table that the click property actually translates nicely to the payment callback in V4. So basically we make an AJAX call in the payment callback and resolve the token. And how can we handle the condition function? Well, there's no way to actually handle it exactly as it was in V3. We have a couple options. As one is hide the payment methods until the input's validated. That's what we're going to do for this exercise. There's definitely more options. One possibility would be to render the PayPal button and then go ahead and go through the flow, and then you should be able to trigger the click of another button on the unauthorized callback, which would then submit a form and make it kind of operate in the same fashion. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back to the complex.html file. First, comment out the old v3 integration, and then locate the part 1 and pause this video and take a couple minutes to try and solve this part on your own, and follow the inline comments to complete. All right, if you haven't done so already, please pause the video because I'm about to go through the answer to this exercise. So if we move back to our training application, the first thing that we need to do is comment out the old integration. I'm going to comment this out. All right, let me locate part 1. And it says use the button config for multiple buttons. So we learned in the exercise previously that we can do a button config.map to map to execute a function on every index of an array. So this function is going to be a button because each object we loop through is a button configuration. All right. So now we are going to render the checkout button. So we do PayPal.button.render, and that gets an object and also a DOM ID. So the DOM ID in this case I know is going to be button.id from the configuration object. It says set the environment. So the environment is going to be sandbox. Create a payment callback to use the PayPal library to call the same endpoint. So payment is a function and use the PayPal library. So PayPal.request. Let's go up and look and see what we're currently doing. We're doing a GET request to this endpoint. We just need to do that again. So PayPal.request.get. And we need to return it. And then we have to return the token. Then return data.token. Save quick, and that should be it for our payment callback. It says call on error. On error, that's easy enough. On error, call on error. Redirect in the unauthorized callback. So we have unauthorized as a function. This always receives data and actions. And we are going to return actions.redirect. And then the next one is redirect the user in the onCancel. So onCancel, another callback function. And this also receives data and actions. We are going to return actions.redirect. Make sure we style and use the commit properties. So I'm just going to do commit equals button.commit, and style is an object that has a color, which is button.color, has a size, which is button.size, it has a shape, which is button.shape. And that should be it for part 1. Oh, the last thing we have to do is add a style of display none to our DOM ID, because we only want to display it when our input validates. So if we go to the pay methods DOM ID and we add a style none. Now if I save it and I return back to the conversion, you should see that there's no payment methods because this form is not valid. We haven't done anything yet with that. So that's the second part to our exercise. All right, so here's the answer to the first part of our exercise. If you didn't get that copied in, go ahead and do it now. Otherwise, we are going to move on to part 2. So let's go ahead and locate part 2 in the complex.html and create the form validation. You should only show the payment methods if that input field is valid. Let's go ahead and pause the video and take a couple minutes to try and solve this part on your own and follow the inline comments to complete. All right, if you haven't done so, please pause the video now because I'm about to go through the answer for this part. So if we locate part 2, it says validate the form on key up of the input field. So I see my input is in a variable here. Create a key up event listener on the input variable. We say input.add event listener key up, which receives an event. All right, so we are going to execute the input's check validity function, and if it is valid, we are going to execute show DOM, and if it's not, we're going to execute hide DOM. All right, so we say if input.check validity. So if it's valid, we are going to show DOM payment methods. Else, we are going to hide DOM payment methods. All right, so now if I save this, and I return back to our conversion page, I'm going to refresh to get the newest changes. All right, so now when I get to 3 characters, it should automatically display my payment methods because I'm doing it on key up. So as soon as I lift up the key, it's running that check validity function. If it's greater than 3, then we are going to display our payment methods. So no payment method, no payment method, payment methods. No payment methods. All right. So now if I go ahead and click, we will see the PayPal flow rendered. And as I hit pay now, it's going to redirect me to the return URL because I'm doing a redirect in the unauthorized callback. All right, so that's it for the second part of this exercise. Here's the answer. If you haven't had a chance yet to copy it down, please do so now. All right, so in conclusion, the payment methods should not be shown when the page loads. They should appear when the input field is greater than 3, and you'll see that here. And the integration should redirect the user to the return URL on success and the cancel URL if they canceled. All right, so that's it for this exercise. Our next exercise will be going over converting a live site to checkout.js v4.